Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Jack's Business Talk. And today we have a very special returning guest, Sara Garret.
Hey guys, how are you?
And the reason why we're having her on is because lately she has said on other podcasts about possibly pulling out equity and using it to go buy more rentals. The pros and cons of that. We'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, which is kind of a cross back and forth scheme. I'm not sure if schemes really. Yes, I'm plotting to take over the real estate empire world. Yes, that's what I'm scheming to do. So anyway, without further ado, I'll let Sara talk a little bit.
Hello guys. So yeah, I'm Sarah and I was a guest speaker at One Rental at a Time annual conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I started investing when I was about 22 years old, buying single family homes. I used my military benefits to purchase a home every time the Army moved me and my family about every 30 months. And so here I am today. I'm 42 years old, and I tell everyone just with four rentals, I here in about maybe 36 to 48 months, I'll have them all paid off. And now my dilemma is, do I scale up and buy more, or do I leverage equity in those properties to actually obtain more properties? I'm just kind of in limbo, wondering or what I should do, or if I should go ahead and scale up and delve into commercial a bit. So far, after everyone I've talked to or listening to their stories of them, they love their commercial properties. But for me, I'm not sure I want to go that route. So I may just keep chinking away at single family homes.
I think the big thing, at least for the commercial side of things, if depending on what you're thinking about buying, like I are you talking about buying like an office area with like apartments on top, or you thinking about just doing like a bigger like 10-plex type of stuff?
Yeah, probably just like a 10-plex. And I think for me, what I've learned between having Mr. Kenny McElroy, who I think I told you guys my husband had paid for me a subscription to him a few years ago. And so, and he and I were back and forth, and he mentored me a bit. The biggest thing for me with going in the commercial side, there's pros and cons to it, but the biggest thing for me was having to deal with refinancing every so many years. And that part, like I said, I'm more or less like I want to buy and hold forever. So I'd prefer just to pay my rentals off. And so for me, I feel like the risk of having to deal with the commercial lending, I'm not sure that I really want to deal with that. But at the same time, depending on like if you're just getting started on your journey as well, I feel like there's also a benefit to investing in commercial, which is I think I spoke on this at the convention. Um, like if you fail with real estate, it's a secured asset, so you can kind of just fail and start over again. You can, I mean, whether that be you're filing from bankruptcy, whether that be you're just walking away from the property and starting over. And so one benefit I see with the commercial real estate is that it's the property that's actually putting its name on the line, so to speak, like not necessarily you. And so, walking away from something commercial is not going to destroy your personal credit. It's just, you can walk away from the property and say, bye bye. And I mean, you can still go get a loan for something for your personal self if you want, right? So
Yeah.
to me, I'm just kind of like weighing all those options out. And I also want something like I like the passive portion of owning real estate. And so for me, I know that if I were to take on whether it's a commercial building or just more single family homes, I don't want to create a full-time job for myself. Like I like being able to have the freedom to hop on podcasts with you guys or even mentor someone that needs help, like that like needs like a how-to or just to be encouraged to get into real estate for themselves. I like being able to have my time to take with anybody that basically like God has crossed paths with me. And so for me, I don't want to become like a slave, so to speak, to our real estate that we have, especially because we do have some level of stability and security because my husband and I, like, I'm retired from the Army and then I mean, he could retire now if he wanted to, but he enjoys his job. So he said he'll keep trucking along. And so for us, I don't necessarily need a ton of rentals. Just kind of figuring out, what we want to do. So that's that.
I think for me, for example, I do plan on making a switch at some point to commercial, but
Okay.
um, but for me, my objective with it is a little bit different. Like I at least want to get financial independence with the regular stuff, your twos, threes, and fours. And then the big thing is like trying to figure which way I need to go. Obviously, I'm in Pittsburgh because it's on my thing even. So anyway, the big thing if I do make a switch to Pittsburgh, or yeah, if I do make a switch to commercial, I don't want it to be in Pittsburgh, which I know sounds contradicting because I'm building up this real estate, my real estate here in Pittsburgh. I don't want to be involved. I want property management. I want
Yep.
to buy like maybe three or four, like 10 plexes or so.
Uh-huh.
And I don't want them in the city. I don't want to see them. I don't want to look at them. I just want to collect a paycheck. And I want the stuff I have here in Pittsburgh to try and pay the stuff off before I have to refinance it
Uh-huh.
and just value add it and just sit back for a while and just set money back for repairs and just live off the cash flow of all that stuff. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about doing because it's between like owning, like getting a little business started and the real estate that I want to have here in the area, I feel like should be enough to pay off a bigger project in like I like five. If I had to do one refinance, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But like I'd like to be able to get it paid off in like 10.
Okay. Yep. 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 Yep, I mean, it's absolutely possible. So that's kind of like, so even for me, sometimes I don't ever believe in regrets at all. I don't believe anything. I don't know why I was born like this, but I don't believe anything that most of the world sees as negative is negative. So like, I look at myself and had I had the knowledge that I have now today at 42, had I had that even by 25, like, so bought my first, I was 22, might have been getting ready to turn 23 or somewhere in there, turn 23. I don't remember, but if I had had the knowledge I have today at like 26, 27 years old, honestly, I would have actually bought more because I was in a position to be able to buy. I was in a position to be able to buy two properties really every time that we moved or that the military had us PCS. And then I also would have put a ton of more, like ton of money down with them also because I was in a position to do that as well. And then, like I said, I would have bought more. And so for me, like I said, to me, you're not going to know these things if you haven't gone through it. So like for example, like you're self-managing, right? I was in a position where I couldn't self-manage because we have to move every time. So that type of stuff actually decreased my cash flow. But again, because I knew I wanted to retire from the army, I didn't really need cash flow. I also didn't need an alligator either, so I didn't have that. But I also was like, okay, I was making double payments every month. So it's like, that was just by choice. But had I known what I know now today, which you can only know today what you know by going through things, right? All
Yeah.
of my properties I have would have already been paid off, and I probably would have had four more, to be honest with you. But it was just like baby steps, taking it one step at a time. And like you really can't learn, or the best way to learn is through hands-on or experience. And so for me, like I fully support your strategy because, like I said, that's kind of where I'm at now is like, all right, so I'm going to have these houses paid off. Like, do I want to get more? Do I really need more? But then, like I look around and see all these older people, which I think I've shared with a lot of people that because I had my daughter as a teenager, it always put me in the room with people at least 10 plus years older than me. So I've always been able to glean from their successes and their failures. And just because I'm a person that asks a lot of questions, and sometimes people get really PO'd at me because they're like, you're nosy. I'm like, no, no, I'm really just trying to learn. Like, I want wisdom, right? And so for me, yeah, like what you're trying to do to me, that's you don't want to be over safe because in order to build wealth, you have to take some kinds of risks, right? But it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be stupid. They can be very calculated risks. So for me, even just getting one paid off, right? And then being able to go and scale up from there because when you're dealing with real estate or tenants that don't it's not their home, right? It's
Mhm.
yours. Like they're never going to treat it how you want to. And even still then, even if everyone's different, like we are all made different, right? And so everyone's standards are just different. It's not even that they're a bad tenant or a bad landlord or whatever. Everyone just has different standards. And a buddy of mine years ago, he's a real estate agent still today. He had told me you'd make a great broker because like that's I'm really good at just I'm good at negotiations, different things. But I'm like, yeah, but I have to be a real estate agent before I could be a broker. And like I'm not, I'll tell someone that's a piece of crap, right? Like I'm pretty blunt. And so I learned with he's like, well, just come along with me for some ride-alongs and like meet me at this property, meet me at this property. And when I would go and watch people, I mean, it's places I would never set foot in, but they were so full of joy to like want to buy this house, like for themselves. And so I learned a lot from that with dealing with people. And so for me, um, you definitely, like I said, could pay off one and then leverage up. But to me, you 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 want to keep wealth is kind of like for me, I would think you're building wealth because people want to keep it. They don't want to squander it away. And so I feel like the safest risks you can take, I think the better. So to get one paid off or not, like I was telling someone last week, because I think Jen asked me like, how many properties do you have? And I said, just four. And then, maybe people thought I had a lot, but my point is that when you look at the monetary side of it, unless you're trying to leave your like job, your W-2, it's a different, depends on what your end goal is. Then like for me, I don't have as much risk as people that might have 10 or 20 or 30 doors because I've got four refrigerators. Well, actually, I have one property that has two AC units. So I've got five AC units across the four single family homes. And so for me, like I have less risk, but I've built wealth. Really, I could have done it quicker, but I just didn't know what I didn't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for me, I fully support anyone saying, hey, or getting your loan to value like down, getting it paid substantially down and then take some more risk. But again, it just depends on what your ultimate goal is. If for me, like I said, the benefits of just healthcare insurance serving my country for 20 years and had to have that for the rest of my life, that to me outweighed any sort of like scaling up because of the fact that like I grew up without healthcare insurance. And so then I also see what civilians pay for healthcare insurance and we don't have those costs at all. So for me, I mean, I fully support, you wanting to do that. Like it sounds like a really good plan.
I think, and honestly, the other thing I was going to do is, like, my overall goal is to be able to leave my job because I haven't really said this a whole lot, but I was basically told that probably within the next couple of years I'm going to be forced out of where I'm working, and that's
Really?
why I'm currently working on getting a CDL because what I'm doing currently is yeah, it's manufacturing, and manufacturing is everywhere, but like what I do is too fine focused on just one specific area. So
Okay.
to go somewhere else, I have to start all over, take a huge pay cut. At least as a truck driver, I can kind of break even, but like have the option to almost double what I'm making in a few years.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
I'm just like, okay, well that'd be great because then I can pay off all my bad debt very quickly, honestly.
Yep.
And there's two properties I like to pay off. And it's not even so much like I know Dion always like to say you shouldn't pay off properties because you can put that money. This is why I want to pay off these two properties. There's
Yep.
less than $40,000 left on the mortgages.
Right.
I can only buy one rental property with $40,000 for a
Right.
down payment.
Right.
If I pay it off, the properties have almost like $50,000 increase on the one, and I think like 30 on the other. Increase equity. Well, that means I can take out 60 on the one and probably like 40 on the other, which gives me $100,000. I can go. That's three rental properties. I'm sure I can throw in another 20 and get four rental properties.
Yep. 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 No, for sure. Like I said, everyone, again, this because I have a lot of friends I've had over the years that's like, oh, should I buy this property or should I do this? Or like even just with like their paper investments, should I do this? And the thing for me is like, I think step one is that you have to be very honest with yourself, which requires getting to know yourself to know ultimately what you want. And so for me, like in Dion's situation, there's a reason why he doesn't want his properties paid off, right? He
Mhm.
doesn't intend to leave anything to his kids. If I remember correctly, he said on one of his podcasts, maybe or someone else's, he doesn't intend to leave his properties to his children. So for me, that's different for me, right? And so that's not my ultimate goal. So I think you have to kind of know what your ultimate goal is or what you would like your end to look like, and then make decisions from there. I'm also not in the camp of Dave Ramsey either, where he's like, have only paid for rent. Like I'm not in that camp either, but like I'm probably somewhere in between. So I know even for us, like the debt that we do have still left on our rentals, there's ways it actually helps us financially, like having that debt, right? Like just with my husband with his job, right? We don't have to pay taxes on his income because of the debt that I have with the rentals, right? And so that's helpful for us, but there's going to come a point in time when he's either promoted again or he retires that, if I don't want to pay taxes, and you have to just run your numbers. How much would I have to pay in taxes? Or if I could donate that amount of money to, a nonprofit or a school or something instead, then and that donation would offset our tax liability instead once my husband were to retire. And then once we do have rentals paid off, because then you're going to be in a situation where the depreciation of the asset's not going to cover what I'm taking in income every month for the properties, right? I mean, even with the repairs and things like that, I may have to pay a little bit, right? And so for me, it just again, it depends on what your goals are, what your risk tolerance is. And so for based off of what I've heard Dion share on several different podcasts or channels that include his, like he has a reason why he doesn't do that. But just because that reason works for him, and that's based off of his goal, and you have to keep that in mind. I think I shared that with Lindsay on when I was on her channel a couple of weeks ago. Is that like one thing I wish I could encourage people to understand is like we're all not the same for a reason. There's no one specific way to do what you're doing. Some people might not agree with me. It's like, well, I would never live below my means and make double payments on mortgages. Some people think, I mean, I have people still right now who don't even know that we have been buying since we were young that just see like my husband's rank in the army, right? And they're like, what is he doing driving that car? Right. And we just laugh because he drives like a 22-year-old car. Right. So there's like dents all in it. Like, I mean, we genuinely don't care because that's not what gives he and I joy. And so for me, I just wish people, well, it'll never happen, but I just wish people could like, we don't compare ourselves with one another. And then even for me sharing my stories, like, hey, I've literally for real used 4 rentals to build wealth, right? There's so many things I'll never have to worry about from just having currently 4 properties. Again, do I have to go get more? It just depends. Do I want all that responsibility? Maybe, maybe not, but it doesn't require a lot, but what it does require is just being willing to try, right? And so for me, I mean, I know definitely because you're doing like your repairs and your turnovers and stuff, like that's a whole thing. Like I commend you for that because I could never do that. So even when you just said right now, like, yeah, I just want to have like a 10-plex. I don't want to see it. I never want to be anywhere near it. I promise you, I know what you're talking about. I know, like that feeling. It's like something for me, like my kids, when we go to different places or like where we own at, and I'll drive by like, hey, mommy and daddy, this is ours, right? This one day will be yours or whatever. And my kids think it's kind of cool, or sometimes like, who cares, right? And then, but like for me, other times, like that's kind of where like, because my husband, he'd make a great like property manager. He's like, why don't you get into management? I'm like, Keith, that's not me. Like, I'm not like, my husband has the patience. Like, oh, there's water leaking everywhere. Oh, he's just, I mean, I mean, you met Keith, so he's like super
Mhm.
calm. Whereas like me, I'm like, this is despicable. We need to do this, and this. Like, and like my heart rate will go up to 140. And whereas my husband can walk in literally and just like it's chaos. And there's just like this peace that he has, like, okay, oh, the water's going everywhere. Could you bring me some towels, please? Like, so for me, I tell my husband, if you want us to scale up, like, I'll find a deal to do commercial once you get out of the army because he really won't need to work when he gets out the army. And so he's like, what am I going to do all day long? And I was like, well, if you really want to do that, like the management of things and put together, different contractors for repairs or maintenance or whatever, I'll find us a larger building and then, even up to 30 units, whatever. And we can do that. And then like you can go do all the property management. But like me, I'm not doing that. So when you said that, like, yeah, I just want some 10 plexes, and yeah, I don't want them to be anywhere near where I'm at. And like, I feel you. I get it. This is like I mean, I had a tenant call me like what last week, and he's probably the best tenant I've ever had. Amazing guy. I'm gonna be so sad when he has to leave. I think he's got like another year and a half with me, and then he's gonna have to move. And like I'm just sad. But he called me last week because he's like super on top of everything in this house. I mean, he has. He's been with a tenant with me going on almost 6 years, and he called me like, "Oh my, Mrs. Garrett, there's a problem." And my heart starts to like thump, right? And I don't self-manage. I actually have a property manager, but the circumstances by which he ended up becoming my tenant required me to end up having to reach out to him on the phone. So I had to fire a property management company some years ago. So I had always told him if there's a problem, you can always call me. Well, like he literally treats my house like it's his baby. Like it's a little bit crazy, actually. I'm so blessed. And like he called me like, yeah, this HVAC thing. I'm sitting here thinking, by the time he got done, I'm thinking that he was like having to move because I'm like, I don't want to lose him as a tenant. Like I'm planning for him to be there another year and a half, and because he's just not going to find a good tenant the way that you have with this man that's been with him and his wife now. They've been there. She's been there like 2 years. He just got married 2 years ago, and then like I said, he's been there almost six, and so he's like literally wigging out like as if it's his house. And I'm like, sir, that's not a big deal. I was like, I'll take care of that this week. And I'm like, I'm thinking you're calling to tell me you weren't going to be my tenant anymore. That's an emergency to me because I love him to death, right? So, anyways, my whole point is that yes, like the hands off, even for me, even though I could have paid more off on the houses by not having management, right? The peace of mind that I've had has been beautiful. Like it's like I have peace of mind. I have to make major decisions for things for the properties, but the peace that I've had, I'm like, no, property management, they can deal with all the riffraff or tenants that want to act a fool with them. Like I don't want to deal with that. So
I'm actually thinking about this time around. I might do it first. I listed up the unit and it's been up for like almost a week now. I've had two inquiries,
okay,
but like the one that I said in the ad, if you're interested, please go here, screenshot your credit score just on Credit Karma, something free, just what Lumberjack teaches. I was like, please do these three things. They didn't do any of the three things. They're like, I want to schedule a time to come. No, I'm not even replying. You didn't follow any of the directions.
right,
I'm
right,
not
right,
wasting my time.
right.
The other one did do all that, and then I seen somewhere that they're reporting that they make like $8,000 a month. I was like, then why are you applying to this? Like, go buy a house. You could go buy four houses.
Well, so like, okay, so I'm gonna give you another perspective. So like that would be me and my husband. So I mean, I literally had banks like what the heck? Like you guys only want to borrow $150,000. I'm like, yeah. And they'd be like, why? I mean, I had a bank ask me like, I mean, because and this is like when I first started out, so I didn't really understand like, oh, banks are making money by like the more money you ask to borrow. So I didn't get all that because again, I grew up in scarcity, and so even simple things is what makes me happy. And so for me, like I always have a plan. So like even some my neighbors even now are like, you're kind of like not like us. Like I'm a little confused about like because all of our friends live in like crazy places, right? But these are our friends. And so they're kind of like, why don't you guys live over there with your friends? I'm like, because I don't want the problems that they have. Like I don't. Like I know I see what they're dealing with the house that's 8,000 square feet and they have to replace their roof.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
Or they've got six HVACs in that 8,000 square foot house. And just to get one of them serviced, one of the HVACs is at least 250 service call every time they have to come, right? And so I'm like sitting back watching from them, learning, like, yeah, I don't think I want those problems. Like, I like to do stuff like this, right? And so for me, yeah, so there could be another reason why that person that makes 8 grand a month wants to live that well below our means. Because, like I said, my husband and I, we've been getting laughed at since we were young soldiers together, digging in dumpsters for furniture outside of the single soldier barracks, or we would be making deals with single soldiers on post who live in a little small German house. And so and again in the military, everyone knows how much money you make because your rank's on your chest, right? And so like my first, I think I might have shared this, like my supervisor, which is called a first sergeant in the army at the time, called me in for a meeting. He's like, the soldiers told me they've been seeing you and your husband digging through the dumpsters outside the barracks at night. like what's going on? Because the armies, they're much always in your business because you have and your finances impact readiness to be able to deploy and stuff. And so he's like, are you guys having financial problems because you're dual military and you guys make X amount of money per month? You shouldn't be digging in a dumpster. I said, First Sergeant, I have a mission and I have a plan. Promise you, come holler at me in about 10, 15 years, maybe 20. And so it's funny because we run into those same people again and they like laugh and they're like, your wife had a plan from the beginning for real, right? And so my point is that someone could make 8 grand a month and only want to live in a place that costs $700 because we've done it. It's like I've done it. And I mean, the rumors are hilarious that people will spread about. She's like, oh man, they're doing X, Y, and Z. They're dumpster divers. Like, yep. So I don't have the same problems you have 15 years later. So, who knows?
Yeah, I just thought it was a little bit weird, especially coming from Texas, and I was just like, and again, he didn't send the credit score, so I was just like,
Oh, okay.
no,
Okay.
you
Gosh.
have to
So you
follow the
you
instructions.
self-manage all your stuff? Do you self-manage everything like
Yeah.
place? Oh, really? Really, really. Oh my gosh.
Well, I was thinking about this time around because of that, getting a real estate agent to do the showings and stuff. Because I just feel like it would help move it along a little bit quicker, and I'm not going to constantly be drugged down there. But anymore, I'm kind of getting to a point where it's just like, man, I can't wait to be an out-of-state investor. Like, I just want to be so hands off on this stuff anymore.
Yeah, yeah. No, well that's kind of how I am. Like and I've gotten better over the years because moving around, I've gotten better. So in the beginning, I'd have like, oh my God, sometimes what a tenant thinks is emergency isn't an emergency either. And so over the years, as I've gotten more and more used to dealing with different tenants I've had, like I've been able to be more like Keith in some aspects pertaining to the properties. Although I'm very like a over the top landlord. Like I want everything done properly. If there's anything wrong, I like when my tenants message me and say, hey, can I get this little board fixed? Can we get this? Like, because I don't ever intend to sell. And so for me, I want them to stay as brand new or in good working order as possible. So I deal with repairs like very quickly if I can, depending on if I'm waiting on parts or something like that. But even that, like I said, they go through my manager and then like I may have to make like major decisions. But there has definitely been a piece. Like I've got one neighbor of mine. Um, they have a rental property and like they were stressed out all the time for like at the last because I've lived here near them like for 3 years, almost 4 years now. And the wife finally called me like 6 months ago. Was like, can I meet with you? Because my husband told me you guys have several rentals and we actually own this one. And like she was just stressed out. So she's works for Gulfstream. Her husband's actually a doctor. And and so like I went down there and I told him like you need to hire a manager. Why are you guys with 2 little kids going over there at night? Like you guys make good money too. Like so I'm not like I mean, and they don't. She's actually from China, so she's used to like frugality. She doesn't have student loans, anything like this. I'm like, you can literally just outsource the stress because I see the stress on both your guys' faces, and like let a manager deal with that. And I'm telling you, like she actually took my advice, and it's like just come over here and like tears of joy hugging me, like thank you so much, Sarah. I never imagined how just paying someone 150, $200 a month and their rentals actually paid for. So I'm like, what are you doing? Like
Yeah.
she's like, well, we live within 30 minutes from it, so we just deal with it. And I'm like, no, like your husband's a doctor, you guys they have a set of twins, and I'm like, just get a manager. And so like the piece that they have now, I mean, and granted, it's still here in the state, but like you can just kind of outsource some of that stuff. You know what I mean? And but again, if you're trying to quit your job and you're solely chasing just cash flow, like that's why I was saying it just depends on what a person is doing. It's like in Dion's case, he didn't want to work his regular job anymore either. And so for him, like he was chasing cash flow also because the fact I think same thing with Mr. Zuber. He wasn't intending on here. He wanted to leave his job as well. But like I said, for me, knowing that insurance is a really big cost for people, my goal was never to leave at least the army. That was never my goal. Like, just to do the 20 years so I could have those benefits locked in for life. And then I could find something else to do if I wanted to later. And so for me, like I said, just depending on what your end goal is, will determine whether or not, you need to chase cash flow. So if you fully need all cash flow as much as you can get, then hiring a management company is might not give you, it might make you just more stressed out. I mean, it would make you more stressed out financially because you're reducing your cash flow, right?
Yeah. But
Just
yeah.
something to think about.
So how much longer does your husband have with the army and stuff?
So my husband's at full retirement. He's been at full retirement
Oh,
for 2 years now. He's been at full retirement. But the thing about it is like he loves his job. And I actually love the army. Like we're choosing to hunker down where we're at now, just because like our son has Matthew's got so much stuff going for football for him. I mean, it's getting in a fun, crazy kind of fun kind of way. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I don't want to move him again during this like really vital time of him coming in to his freshman year this fall. And like I said, he's definitely on people's radar to play football at the next level. I'm really excited. I've got some teams here in the SEC, actually in the ACC, that started following me on Twitter because my whole Twitter is circulates around him for football. And like last week, I'm like, oh my God, this school is following like the coach, his actual coach that would be his coach for the offensive lines following me. So my whole point with that is that and then my husband, he looked around like, what would I do out here in the civilian world? Like the job he's got in the army, he loves it. And so he's like, I can't, I'm not going to have what I have in the civilian world. I mean, if I get out the army, I'm not going to have like the peace and the stability and things that I have in the army. And then like, because my husband's a DOD child, so he was born into DOD. So his dad was in the Air Force from the time he was born. So my husband just DOD has been his whole life since birth. And so he's like, I don't really know. Interacting with civilians is weird to me or whatever, like, because he's used to all, federal government language or Department of Defense language since he was born. And so he could, if he wanted to retire, he could now. But as a matter of fact, the Army's really short in the position that he has right now. And so he's like, hey, they need me. Like they still need me. So I'm going to keep serving my country. We're a pretty patriotic family too. And so for me, like the Army's, it's an adventure, to be honest with you. I get to meet people from all over the world. It's been pretty cool. And so for me, I don't mind him being staying in the Army either. So he's like, yeah, I'll just keep rolling along. If they need me, I'll keep staying. so, so yeah. So yep. So we'll keep rolling for as long as the Army needs him, I guess, until he maybe gets fed up with it. But for the most part, he like I said, he loves his job. So it doesn't bother me or the kids. So we're used to it. Like we've lived and been all over the world. So it's like I said, it's an adventure.
is there any incentives to stay in after you're 20 or
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. So you actually can continue to draw. So every year that so okay, from the time you come in the service, well, they have a new retirement program now. We're underneath the old system. So the time you come into the service, every year that you're in the military, you're adding something called longevity pay to your retirement. So you earn 2.5% of your base pay that you're going to be like whatever your rank is when you retire, you're earning 2.5% of that base pay in the form of a retirement check from like once you reach full retirement, which is 20 years. So from that day forward, you're going to get paid a retirement check from that day for the rest of your life. So in order to be eligible for retirement, like your initially like retirement, is you have to do at least 20 years, right? So I think now the new rules is that you do 20 years, but you only draw 40% of your base pay of your rank that you are when you retire, as long as you've been that rank for 3 years. And then any year that you stay over 20, you're still adding 2.5% of your base pay to the back end of your retirement check for the rest of your life once you actually get out of service. So for him, like when he hit 20, he was at 50% of his base pay, and then now he's gone to 22 years. So now he's at 55% of his base pay. So he would draw based off of what his pay grade is or your rank. So your pay grade when you get retired. So say, hey, you retired as a whatever, an E9 or something, an E7, whatever. So an E7 might make just say $5,000 a month. And so when they retire at 20 years, as long as they've been an E7 for at least 3 years, they'll draw half of their check that their current active duty paycheck, their base pay, they'll draw half of that for the rest of their life until the day that they die. So if you go past 20, that just keeps compounding. It's like kind of like in a way like compounding interest, kind of sort of. And so you just keep compounding more money towards your final retirement payout that you'll get every month until you die. And then once you die, the check goes away, or you can actually allocate and pay like a monthly insurance premium on your paycheck that your spouse could get half of that retirement check if you were to die prematurely or whatever, then it would go to your spouse. So it's a pretty good, and then you also, like I said, get health insurance for the rest of your life if you've served. Only if you've done a full retirement, though, do you get these benefits. Like, so if you have other people, like most people don't stay in the military for 20 years. They usually, I think the average span of someone that joins from start to finish is either 6 or 8 years. I can't remember. Like that's across all branches of the service that they only just do six or eight or 6 to 8 years. And then they actually decide to go into the private sector for work, and then they just like they might have done it just to like get their college paid for or to have college money or whatever. And so but for us, like I said, I had wanted to be a soldier since I was a little girl, so I wanted to stay till full retirement. And then same thing with my husband. So he's like, nope, we're short and they need people, so like I'm willing to keep serving or whatever. And so yeah, so the benefits on the end are to me very much worth it, which is why I encourage people, especially when they're young, if they don't know what they want to do, joining the military is a really good like stepping stone. And then of course, for the rest of your life, even after you get out the service, even if you didn't retire, you have access to a VA backing for a mortgage for the rest of your life. And I don't know if I told you before, you can purchase a fourplex and below with the VA backing for a mortgage. As a matter of fact, I had already bought two properties by the time that I had learned that. And then I was going to buy a fourplex when the Army moved us again another time, like maybe 11, 12 years ago. And I had like a thing on two different ones I was going to look at. And right before we got moved in there, they, an investor came and bought both of the fourplexes.
Uh,
Yep. This is like I said, probably like, yeah, like 12 years ago. So, and actually it was a good time to buy because it was coming out of the GFC actually. So what was this like? I think it was like 2014, 2015. I was going to do that. So whatever that, yeah, it was like 10 years ago. And like literally, I was going to like we had a showing and everything, and like literally we were leaving Hawaii, and I was getting ready to purchase the fourplex, and then I got a thing like, hey, an investor just came in and they wanted both of them. So I'm like, oh, and I've actually never been able to find a good decent fourplex ever again since then. So yeah.
I I haven't been able to find, well, besides the one I bought, I don't see too many fourplexes that are reasonable.
Yeah. So, you know what I want to tell you guys about too? I wanted to probably come on school and talk about this. So, my other neighbor, we got to talking last night because he came by. Like I treat all of our properties like I do my rentals, and so everything is very systematic. So here in the South, they use pine straw a lot on, I guess, for around the bases of homes. It looks really nice in the like when they put it new. Anyways, he came by to ask me like, can you set up the whole neighborhood how you do your house? Is what he came by to ask me. Me and my husband. So my husband comes in like, oh, the neighbor needs help. Long story short, my neighbor sells, this goes into the fourplexes. So he sells um, natural gas to new build communities that are going up. So, we're here in the South right now. So you've got Pulte down here, you've got Lennar down here that literally were trying to chink out all kinds of houses during COVID because you have larger profit margins here in the South, right? Because you get the land for really cheap, whatever. So I'm hoping that he's going to be able to let me come to his next meeting. So he met yesterday with Pulte, right? Trying to get them to sign a contract with him to allow natural gas into this new up and coming community that's like it's in South Carolina, that's one that they're building. So he ends up telling me yesterday like all this cool stuff that he learned in the business meeting about like he was telling me that Pulte in the meeting yesterday said that they were getting like their profits margins went from 13% down to, I'm sorry, 14% down to 3 right now, right? So as a result of that, in this meeting he sat in, and they're trying to, which I think they published some of this like publicly because obviously they're a publicly traded company, but in the meeting they're trying to adjust to only sell fourplexes now, but sell them as townhomes to try to
Oh,
make some money like in this specific market that we're well that market is part of my market in Savannah, but it's on the other side of the river. And so yeah, and so I'm like, wait, can you go on a podcast? I'm like, will you do a podcast with me with some of my guys online? Like, and talk about what you had in this meeting. He's like, well, I'm not really sure if I can. It's like, I have to find out about that. I don't really know. He's like, I'm just trying to sell these guys gas. But I thought it was really neat because even for me, I haven't been able to find fourplexes in like years, right? And so, but now I'm like, okay, maybe this all has to do with that because Pulte is trying to pivot from the land that they had bought on the South Carolina side that they're developing in this community or whatever. And they literally pivoted from single family homes because they're only getting 3%, right? Their profits. And so they in this meeting he sat in yesterday, they went through this whole thing of like, we think the solution will be to build fourplexes and sell the fourplexes as townhomes instead. And so, like, I guess they're going to have another meeting, which he's just trying to sell gas to these people. But I said, so are you going to be able to sell gas on townhouse for townhouses? He's like, I don't know, Miss Sarah. Like, I'm trying. He's younger guy. He's like, I'm trying. So I always felt like he's my little like son in the neighborhood. And then his wife's actually a doctor, and so yeah, he's like, yeah, I don't know about that with the town. If they decide to pivot completely and they run with it, the single family homes and the townhomes, it's gonna, be a problem for me to be able to get them to buy gas. So, because here in the South, a lot of people like gas flickering lights on their houses. It's like very nostalgic and kind of like old fashioned. And it actually, it sells a lot more. The homes do that have the natural gas flickering on the outdoor lights, and then there's gas in the homes or whatever. And so, yeah, I just thought that was neat yesterday that like their whole strategy they think is going to work is doing fourplexes. So I'm like, no wonder why none of us can find fourplexes. That's probably their strategy in all the markets that I've been in for the last 5 years. So it's crazy.
I I've seen those lights you're talking about up here, but they're always in super old houses. But I've never actually seen a functional one. So that'd be,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, if you ever decide you want to come to Savannah, it's gorgeous. Like, I mean, it literally, I'd say a lot of Northerners that moved down here during COVID, that's probably what made them overpay for these houses that literally were only 600 grand before COVID. And they like, oh, I'll pay 1.5 million. Like, lady, you know that thing sold 2 years ago for 600. Like, no one down here can, like, the work here in the South doesn't hold properties for to be $1,005. But I think a lot of people, or 1,005,000, I think a lot of people like they fell in love with like that nostalgia, and it's so beautiful like at nighttime because they just flicker outside, and then like you have like a lot of the old like brick and stuff like that. So when you see these, I mean, even in new houses, they put it in new houses too, but it literally gives this like old fashioned look that's like to die for. And so yeah, it's gorgeous. So they all work down here, the gas lights do, but you've got to run plumbing through the houses. And so if you've got a house already built, I mean, it's would be pretty expensive to rip out drywall and things and try to plumb for gas. So,
Yeah,
oh boy.
up here, there's a bunch of older farmhouses, like I don't, I can't, probably 1800s, late 1800s,
Okay.
early 1900s.
Okay.
And they have the lines, but they just don't work. Like they,
Really?
just over time, something's happened. They cut the gas line way back and cap the line off. But it's
Really?
like you can still see like parts of the line. And I was like, oh man, it'd be so cool to see one of these work.
Oh, there. I mean, you can actually. I mean, after we are done, you could get online and like just see. It's. I mean, it's gorgeous on the houses, especially like when. I mean, when you see them on the because they have the really really old houses that in like downtown Savannah that were like built in the 1800s. I think they've even got a couple of things still standing that were built in like the late 1700s. And so, like just seeing those gas lights flicker on those really old houses because they keep them to like a standard in Savannah. If you buy a house in like the historic portion or the historic areas of Savannah, like you have to still keep in with that time frame. And
Yeah.
so, but then like all the new houses, even in like the more higher end developments or whatever, like they all have gas in them too. And it's, I mean, especially like, because it doesn't snow down here like that. It's like really rare. So it'll be like crisp cold outside. So it's like winter, but like there's no snow you have to deal with. But then you see like these gas lights flickering, like even on some of the lights in the community, like the common area lights, they're flickering. It's so beautiful. Oh my God, like even right now, like, oh, it's so gorgeous. Yep, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I'll definitely go ahead and check that out.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, they put them on all of the nicer communities here. They'll have the gas light, so it looks pretty cool.
Well, I'll go ahead and let you go.
All
Thank
right.
you for tuning in,
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. Let me know. I'm here for you guys.
and thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Jack's Business Talk.
All right. Bye, Jack.